What's up, incredible sauce? I hope you are all well. Let's dive into spreading love, peace, honesty, and forgiveness to the whole world. Watch till the end, hit the like button, and tell us where you're watching from. I am Y311H, straight out of Africa, with lots of positive vibes. Let's dive in.
Okay, this is, they call it sandfish. This is live only in the sand.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
First time we have seen.
Yes,
Sandfish.
sandfish.
They will not bite?
No, not bite.
Wow.
And they eat insect.
Ah.
Yes, and worms.
You can put him in the water?
No, not in the water.
Only in the sand?
Only in the sand. See, now, how can you go to under the sand? It's very fast.
Oh.
This is a toy ballerina, and this is a little mirror that comes with it. When the ballerina sees herself in the mirror, she starts to spin. It's a cool little toy, but how does it work? Let's take apart the base of the ballerina. Look, there's the magnet, and using this compass, you can see that this is north and this is south. To simplify things, I'm going to use this magnet here. It's actually two cube magnets joined end to end. This is north, this is south. And I've 3D printed a base for the magnet so it can have a rounded bottom like the ballerina. And to keep the mystery a little longer, here's the mysterious box that makes the magnet spin. Look, it spins according to the arrows I've drawn on the box. How cool is that? So what's going on inside this box? Well, actually, let's have a look inside the mirror first. Look, there it is. At the bottom of the mirror, a little magnet. We can see north is here and south is here. And maybe that's a little surprising actually, because it's an angle, a 45-degree angle. And presumably that's important because, look, the manufacturer put a little pen mark on there so that the people assembling it would know how to put it in correctly. And in fact, that's what I've got inside the box, a magnet with north and south on the diagonal. So when the box is put down like this, the magnet spins anti-clockwise, and when the box is flipped onto its side, the magnet spins clockwise. So what's the mechanism? Well, let's take the magnet out of the box and the other magnet out of the stand and push them together with our hands at 45 degrees. When we do that, what we'll feel is two forces. Firstly, you'll feel a repulsion force. That's because you've got a North Pole and a North Pole here close together and a South Pole and a South Pole here close together. They repel each other. But you also feel a second force, a twisting force. And that's because this North Pole is somewhat close to this South Pole, and this South Pole is somewhat close to this North Pole. They attract each other, and that leads to a torque force, a twisting force. So what happens when you combine these two forces? Well, without a rounded bottom, not much, but when you deploy the patented bottom rounder 3000 here, two things happen. The first is that twisting force causes the contact point to change. The whole assembly rolls a little clockwise. So the contact point is now here, but the center of the magnet is now here. It's no longer above the contact point. But the repulsion force from the magnet in the box is still acting in aggregate on the center of the magnet. So looking from above, you can see, here's the contact point, here's the point being pushed by the magnet. And so you have a torque force. The assembly will rotate around the contact point. But as it moves, the contact point moves as well. It rolls like a wheel. Like if I push this wheel against the ground at an angle, it causes the wheel to rotate. It's the same thing that's happening here. What's really cool is that because there are no moving parts, no batteries, no motors, this is actually a source of free energy. I'm planning to build a giant one to power my house. The reason you haven't heard of this before is because spinning ballerina technology has been suppressed for decades by the big energy companies. Or the energy is coming from somewhere that isn't obvious. That's probably it, isn't it? In fact, when we had the magnets out and we were holding them together and we felt that repulsion force, well, when the box magnets are brought close to the spinning magnets move away. So the force is acting over a distance. Work is force times distance moved in direction of force. In other words, that force that you feel as you move the magnet is you doing work. In other words, the energy to dance like a ballerina comes from within. And I think I always knew that.
The eclipse at Niagara Falls. I don't know where that is. But oh, my friend, look at these magnificent images. Look at the crowds there. It looks pretty cool, man. You see? It looks amazing. Awesome, if I may say, good vibes gatherings. And now, my good friends, tell me, do you think that is the sun and the moon there doing some magic by coming together? Oh, you see, even these heavenly bodies understand unity. You see? That's why after some time they come close to each other and just spread good vibes. You see? And everybody goes on with their journey normally. Yeah, it's good vibes, wonderful souls. We can also do such incredible stuff. And if this eclipse, just solar and moon coming together, can be visible by a lot of people in this world, then imagine what us or Earthlings, more than 2 people or even the whole world, comes together and unites. You see, the effects can be seen across the whole world, and it can be full of good vibes, my friends. You see? Oh, this eclipse stuff is crazy. Look at this. There were some good vibes, guys.
What would you do if you went on a seemingly innocent trip to the river, was kidnapped by a mermaid, and then brought back 40 years later? Once upon a time, not long ago, when I say not long ago, I mean in 2020, an 8-year-old girl was returned to her village in Zimbabwe after being missing for 40 years. And she was the same age as she was when she went missing. This happened in Winezi, Zimbabwe. An 8-year-old girl, 40 some odd years ago, went to a river to go fishing with her family. As they were about to leave, the girl caught a small fish. And fishes, they're flipping and flopping when you take them out of water. So she dropped the fish. And she went back to the river as everyone was packing up to clean the dirt off of the fish. And she just disappeared into thin air. After a thorough search of the area, police assumed that a crocodile got her. But family wasn't so convinced of that. Family brought in several different traditional healers, and several different healers all told them the same thing and started to give them directions on what to do every year, multiple times out of the year, to bring their baby girl back safely. 40 years they did traditional rituals to appease the mermaids. After years and years and years going through traditional healers and traditional rituals to appease spirit and try to bring the girl back, they finally found the right person to do the job. The little girl walked home. She walked straight into her village and straight to her family.
Hey, what is that thing playing above the plane? Oh, it's like that thing is following that plane. What might that be? Oh, this is crazy stuff, man. Look. What are those things there moving alongside that plane? Hey, but them themselves don't look like planes, my friends. These are crazy stuff. What? Oh my god. Hey. Hey, allegedly this is the place where Prophet Solomon imprisoned the demons. Hey, have you ever heard of that story? Please leave some comments, my friend.
I'm thinking before I say this because I know I'm going to get some backlash on this video. But I know a lot of people have celebrated their birthdays, right? Like everybody has a birthday, right? Well, wrong. You do not have a birthday and you never had a birthday. Now I know some of y'all looking like, what the hell is you talking about? You thinking I done had several birthdays. Okay, stop tripping, stop smoking, and just get off TikTok. You probably thinking that. And I get that. I really do. But that don't change what I just said. You do not have a birthday. You've never had a birthday. I know what I said. Well, look, why am I saying this? Well, for a lot of people who are like familiar with this system, oh yeah, the system, we're all starting to understand that our birth certificate is not what we thought it was. We starting to understand that now, right? So do you know that there is a birth certificate, but on the other hand, you do have a certificate of living birth. And even though they may sound similar, there are two different documents. Now, the one that you're used to having, the one that most of us have, which is the regular birth certificate, you know, since it has our date of birth on there, we have celebrated our birthdays, right? The majority of us have celebrated our birthdays because, hey, that was the day we was born. But if we're going to get technical, especially when it comes to the technicalities of this corporation, the United States Corporation, baby, from what I'm starting to understand, I'm just going to be just frank with you. I'm just going to be honest. That was not a birth certificate. It never was. If anything, it's more like a death certificate. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. But I gotta say it in a way for y'all to understand it. I can't keep trying to sugarcoat myself for this app. I gotta be who I am. That's a whole damn death certificate. There ain't no birth certificate. Like, first of all, how can it be a birth certificate of my living birth if it doesn't even say that? If it has a whole other document that proves I have a living birth, but the document I've been having all this time says that I'm just chattel. The document I've had all this time says that I am cargo. The document I have all this time has been traded on the stock exchange. Well, what the hell? Like, they so slick with the wordplay, it's just ridiculous. Like, we're really operate under maritime law, and they're able to operate under that jurisdiction because of the way that we're brought into this realm. So because I come in through a vessel that has water, which is the mother's womb, they gonna try to equate that shit with a ship that's going through the ocean. That's, you know, a ship is also a vessel, just like you're a vessel, right? And then they're trying to say, like, okay, when the mother is pregnant with you in her stomach, you are nothing but cargo, and she is the vessel, and all she doing is bringing the cargo to the dock, where your doc or doctor registers the cargo. Y'all got us fucked up. No, baby, no. We are not cargo. Oh no. So my whole point for making this video is that this whole time people think they have been celebrating their birthday because their birth certificate that was issued by the corporation said that it was your birthday. But that same certificate says that you were never born. You're not even a living entity under that certificate. Well, if you're not a living entity under that certificate, then how can you have a birthday? That's all I'm saying. I'm just thinking, and I'm just asking questions out loud. Y'all comment and y'all let me know what y'all think.
Top 7 craziest things that have ever been turned into opals. Number 1, an opalized shark tooth. Here it is right here. You can see how it shimmers back and forth in the light like a regular opal. Number 2, can you guess what these are right here? These are small opalized pine cones. They come in all different colors and they're mostly found in Australia. Number 3, an opalized fossil of a crab claw. Number 4, can you make out that opalized fish in the rock right there? Because that is the only one ever found in the world. Number 5, what's cooler than a shark tooth? How about an opalized dinosaur? Scientists believe that this opalized dinosaur tooth belonged to a dinosaur called a theropod. In fact, they found his entire jaw opalized and intact. Number 6, a dinosaur bone made out of opal. This bone is a foot bone and comes from this dinosaur right here, which is a type of iguanodon. And number 7, what's cooler than a dinosaur bone? How about an entire dinosaur skeleton made of opals? Meet Eric the Opal Dinosaur. This is the name that they gave him at the Australian Museum where he's on display. Here's a close-up of his spine. You can see that all of his vertebrae have been turned into opals, as well as all of his other bones. By now you're probably Googling, is this real? Yes, it's totally real. Here's how it works. Most of these opal fossils come from a place called Lightning Ridge in Australia. Australia is home to the Eromanga Sea, which is now dried up, but as it dried, it left behind the perfect mix of minerals to form opals. So if an organism would die in that area, then the seawater would come in and fill up the holes in the skeleton. Then when that water evaporated, it would leave behind silica, which would turn into a fossil, and on the very rare occasion, that fossil will become opalized. It's very difficult to find an opal in the wild, let alone an opalized fossil, making these things extremely rare. Opalized fossils, pretty cool.
You want to know about a remarkable human being? He's right here, Robert Carter of Cincinnati, Ohio. So Robert was a teenager when he went into foster care, separated from his 9 siblings. He said the most depressing thing about being in foster care was at the age of 16, he was living on his own in an apartment, and every day when he would come home, there was never anyone there to welcome him. When he graduated high school, and a lot of foster kids don't, no one showed up at his graduation. He aged out of foster care at 18 because no one ever adopted him. So Robert gets out of foster care, takes custody of 2 of his siblings. They turn 18 and go out on their own. And then Robert, in his late 20s, becomes a foster father to 3 boys. That's them. One day he comes down the stairs and he hears the oldest boy talking about their sisters. And he's like, wait a minute, y'all have sisters? And they're like, yeah, we were separated. Just like Robert was separated. So Robert calls the adoption agency, and according to Robert, he gets told, well, we didn't tell you about the sisters because, you're young and you're a single dad, and we didn't know if you'd be able to handle all of it. So Robert goes to court. And he asked the judge to bring the girls into the home so the 3 boys and the 2 girls could all be together under one roof. The judge said yes. And then Robert went back to court. It was several months later. He got them all dressed up in black and red. The judge remembers it well. And the judge asked him, you're a single man. You made it out of foster care. Life's about being selfish at times. Why do you want to do this on your own? He answered all her questions, and under her court order, she declared them a family. The judge told me, David, I realized he was the real deal. And so the Carter family of 6 lives in Cincinnati, Ohio. Robert owns a hair salon. He does wigs for cancer patients and women with alopecia. He's struggling to make it, but he's doing the best he can. Everybody pitches in. The kids are happy. You see the photos, and it tells a story. I said to him, Robert, with no great parental examples, how did you learn how to be a good dad? And he said, from not having one and giving them everything I wanted. Robert Carter, single dad to 5 kids. He went from foster care to fatherhood and is a remarkable human being I just wanted you to know about.
Object is in stealth mode, circling the backyard. It's about 9:33 p.m. There it is, center of the screen. Can you power up? It was going in the opposite direction minutes ago, and I had to restart my phone. You got a plane in the background, and this object is a lot closer than that plane. Can you really power up? April 22nd, 2024. The activity picked up within a few minutes of being out here tonight. It usually does not take very long. That's headed north. When they're incredibly cloaked, I will usually sense them before I see them. I know the general area that they're coming out of, and then they tend to manifest.
Change, and here's one of the primary tools in the kit, is this knowledge. Change is not about what happens on the outside. It's about how you respond to what happens. It's state of being, not circumstance. So the idea is that if you say you have changed, and a similar situation crops up, that cropped up before when you were in a negative state, and you react in the same negative way to that circumstance, You haven't changed. Therefore, there is no reason for the outside reality to change because you've just proven with the same old reaction that you haven't changed. If, however, the same situation crops up, the same set of props appears before you, and you respond in a different way, in a way that is reflective of the fact that you really believe you're a different person, then you are proving to physical reality you really have changed. And when you make that proof available to reality, then creation and the mirror can change to reflect a true change within you. So remember, it's not about the idea of what changes on the outside that proves you have changed. It's how you respond to what's going on the outside, even if it's still the same, that proves you have changed. Because there is no outside. Physical reality is just a reflection. It's just an illusion. It is just another version of you in whatever state you are in. And if you constantly need to remind yourself what state you are in, that's what the reflection is for, so that you can look in the mirror. And if you see the frown, you can say, oh, that's not what I prefer. I prefer to smile. And thus then, when you keep smiling because that's what you prefer, the mirror will have no choice. But if you make it conditional, well, I'll smile when the mirror smiles first. I'll change. I'll be happy when my physical reality changes first. Then I'll be happy as a reaction. It doesn't work that way.
What exactly is Moldavite? Right, now my name is Luke, and what I do is I teach people about minerals, crystals, gemstones, geology and mineralogy and all of the natural sciences that bring all of these wonderful manifestations of matter into existence. Now, something that I get asked to make tutorials on all the time is Moldavite, because of how popular it is. Now, I have made various educational videos in the past. I've taught you how to insulate yourself against synthetics, of which there are many. I've made videos on how it forms. I've made videos on tektites, of which Moldavite falls into that category. It's a tektite. I've made videos about tektites and how those form more broadly, which encompasses other tektites like Indochinite and Philippinite and Australite and Libyan desert glass, etc., etc., etc. And I've even made videos about the black market for Moldavite, which has come about as a result of the insatiable demand for this material, which is now happening aloft organised crime centred in Central Europe, which are now digging holes all over the Czech Republic in order to find this stuff without any kind of mining licence. So I've made various different educational videos. If you're interested in that kind of thing, then by all means follow us. Now, what is Moldavite? Now, Moldavite may very well not be what you assumed it was. And the reason why it might not be what you assumed it was is because Moldavite is perhaps one of the most missold materials on the market today. It is misrepresented in absolutely ridiculous amounts and to ridiculous degrees. Now, let's talk about what Moldavite is not, first of all, because I guarantee you, and feel free to let me know in the comments, were you told that Moldavite is a fragment of a meteorite? Because it's not. Because it's not. They're fundamentally different materials. Now, let me tell you what a Moldavite is. A Moldavite is a tektite. Now, what's a tektite? A tektite derives from the Greek word tektos, which actually means molten, which is very reflective of what a tektite is. It's essentially molten silica. Now, if the word silica throws you, because it does throw a lot of people, to give you context, silica is another interchangeable term for silicon dioxide, which is silicon, oxygen, bang together, and that makes up an enormous proportion of the continental crust, right? So the area of the planet that you actually get to walk around on. Now, this has a melting point, all right? A lot of the rocks that you see, or quartz crystals, or jaspers, or a lot of the continental crust is made up of silicon material, or silicon dioxide. Now, when this is subjected to an appropriate amount of heat, what happens is that silica material melts. Now, where do we get the heat from? We get the heat from the Moldavite, not the Moldavite, the meteorite rather. So as a meteorite makes contact with the Earth's crust, that enormous amount of heat that it then thrusts into the Earth's crust liquefies that silica material and creates all manner of different tektites. It's not a meteorite. Meteorites are fundamentally different materials. They're comprised generally of nickel and iron, which means a fairly useful diagnostic for whether or not you have a meteorite is to simply use a magnet. That won't work with a Moldavite. And the reason for that is because a Moldavite is not a meteorite. When people, for example, say things, they use marketing strategies by describing Moldavite as an extraterrestrial stone, right? That's quite manipulative. If a meteorite hit my house, that wouldn't make my house an extraterrestrial house. It's just a very flimsy, nonsensical misrepresentation of what Moldavite actually is. Moldavite is a phenomenally interesting material. It's come about as a result of a meteorite which hit Central Europe about 14.7 million years ago. And as it happens with all tektites, that heat and pressure and force has melted the silica material in the continental crust. And in the case of Moldavite, left us with this quite remarkable green pitted material, which, by the way, gets synthesized all the time, so be very careful when buying it. Now, tektites occur all over the world. We get hit by meteorites all the time, varying sizes, sometimes stretched very far apart. Look at something like Indochinite, that, for example, is about 800,000 years old and characterizes the region of Southeast Asia, Tibet, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia. Or you've got things like Australite, which comes from Australia, or Philippinite, which comes from the Philippines, always very unimaginative names, or Libyan desert glass, which comes from Libya and Egypt, which actually has more to do with the fact that the British used to draw very symmetrical borders when we used to colonise people. So, sorry. Sorry about that. Wasn't my fault specifically, but on behalf of my people, apologies for all the symmetrical borders. So yes, you can get Libyan desert glass, which I think is the oldest of the ones that I've mentioned. That's millions of years old, Libyan desert glass. It's even older than Moldavite is, but it's not worth as much for some reason. And so you'll find tektites literally all over the world. Now, when it comes to buying Moldavites, be very careful. There's a few things that you need to remember because, as I mentioned, there is a lot of synthetics on the market. Now, I would say there's a fairly convincing argument that there are more synthetic Moldavites in the world, or replica Moldavites, not just synthetic, but replicas as well, than there are genuine, authentic, legitimate, objective pieces of Moldavite. Okay, now Moldavite comes from the Czech Republic. It's a bit of a truism that's the only place it comes from. It does actually have a broader spectrum than that. It's been found in Germany, Poland, northern Austria. It's been found to a lesser extent in Ukraine, but mainly areas of Bohemia and Moravia in the Czech Republic. That's where it comes from, okay? So one of the things you need to look for, if someone is selling Moldavite and they tell you it's not from the Czech Republic, or it's not from Central Europe at least, very least, big red flag. Like that's full stop, exclamation mark. It's not Moldavite, right? Because it's a unisource product in the sense that it only comes from that part of Europe, okay? The major export economy from the Czech is the Czech Republic. So 99.9% of the time it's going to come from the Czech Republic. So if someone says it hasn't, big red flag, probably not a tektite. Well, it might be a tektite, but it's not Moldavite. Another one, does it look wet? Right, so this is a big red flag for synthetic Moldavites because they're generally comprised of sort of melted green dyed glasses and resins, which have this sort of vitreous luster to it, or almost resinous luster to it, which makes it look quite wet. So if it looks wet, big red flag, because Moldavite, genuine Moldavite, is characterized by various shades of green, normally sort of an olive green, pitted material. And if you look at the internal structure of Moldavite, it tends to be characterized by little tiny bubbles inside, which has come about as a result of the release of silicon dioxide and those bubbles getting trapped inside as it's formed. Or another material known as lecatellurite, which is a word which I cannot stand pronouncing, and I cannot stand writing it down even more because spelling it's even more annoying than saying it, which is a molten variety of silicon dioxide, which I don't have an example to show you. I've got loads of Moldavite, but I probably won't be able to show you close enough. So if you want to know what lecatellurite looks like inside Moldavite, just go onto any search engine, type it in. I'll write the word in the description down there so you actually know how to spell it, because I get that it's hectic. And that is a good thing. If you can see lecatellurite inside Moldavite, that's a good thing. If you can see bubbles inside, that is a good thing. If you can see the fact that it's wet, that is a bad thing. And also they're sort of amorphous in the sense that they have a very irregular, it's not like a normal crystal where it sort of has a crystal habit as an extension of its crystal system. Now you can usually learn to identify certain kinds of crystals based on certain habits. Now a Moldavite is quite amorphous, so deriving from the Greek a meaning non and then morphous meaning shape, so no shape, no discernible physical characteristics, in the sense that each one is very, very different. When you start to see pieces that are doppelgangers of one another, that's probably a resin or a glass that's been put inside a mold so that they can keep making them over and over again in this sort of like quite industrialized way, and in order to thrust it on unsuspecting, naive Western buyers. So be careful of that. If you see two pieces that look absolutely identical, especially if they're being sold by the same person, big red flag, big red flag. So yeah, look for bubbles. Does it look wet? Price is a big one. Now, right, here we go. Here's a trade secret for you. At wholesale, at a gem show, for crap Moldavite, you're looking at about $6 to $8 a gram, right, for a piece of crap. Right, so this is the wholesale amount, which means that it's predicated on the assumption that you're actually going to buy a specific amount of it. So you're going to have to usually buy more than you need. That's the nature of mercantilism. That's the nature of wholesale. And that's for a piece of crap. Now, so the price obviously stretches out quite broadly. It's an enormous spectrum, even at wholesale. And it's obviously very indicative of quality, which I suppose is quite subjective when it comes to Moldavite. But there are pieces of Moldavite that look objectively better than others. So this is how this kind of grading system works. So when you've got someone selling at retail something cheaper than what you'd buy a piece of crap at wholesale, big red flag. Big red flag. You kind of get what you pay for, and the price of Moldavite has gone up enormously by virtue of an absolutely spectacular amount of demand, which has largely come about as an extension of online influencers a couple of years ago who said that Moldavite does all these weird and wonderful things that, to be honest with you, it probably doesn't. If you want to buy it for the right reasons. If you believe particular things about it, that's fine. This is not me trying to encroach upon your beliefs, but just make sure that those beliefs don't come as an extension of marketing. Don't believe it because someone sold it to you as doing that. Moldavite doesn't need to be magic or do anything in order to be interesting. It's already fascinating. It's come about as an extension of a meteorite that's quite literally hit the planet. That's wicked. It doesn't need to be magic to be interesting or to have any kind of marketable qualities to it. There's a fairly convincing argument that Moldavite is a squat ugly material, and without context, most of you would probably agree with me. But it's how it's got there. It's how it's formed that's fascinating. It's how old it is. It's something that has happened in a spectrum of time that is so enormous that it gives people like you and me an enormous amount of perspective as to how infinitesimal and inconsequential we are, and there is a poetic beauty to that I think can't be replicated. So yeah, be very careful when it comes to price. If things, this is across the board, by the way, with crystals and minerals. If it seems too good to be true, it almost always is, unless you found someone that's going out of business and they're liquidating and they're just desperate because they've not been paying their bills. That's usually the only exception. If you've caught a business in liquidation and they're desperate to raise money for whatever reason, that's the only grey area. If it's too cheap to be considered pertinent, then I would keep it at a distance. Another one is certificates. Be very careful with certificates. Now, what's a certificate? Now, you would consider a certificate to be a document that authenticates the legitimacy of a particular product. You would expect it to be watermarked and embroidered and sort of like lovely gold embroidered paper or something like that. Now, little thing I'm going to teach you. Anyone can buy gold embroidered paper, literally anyone, and they do, and it's a big problem in the industry, not just with Moldavite, but cut stones in general, and sort of loads of various different rare minerals and tektites and alexandrites and things like that. People are usually selling these things to strangers on the internet. Now, a big red flag is when you've got some bloke or woman who has slid unlubricated into your DMs just saying hello, and then try to wrap a security blanket around you whilst marketing their Moldavite to you by saying, don't worry, it's got a certificate. All right, anyone can write a certificate, and it happens a lot, and it's a big red flag. If someone has slid unlubricated into your DMs and is trying to sell you Moldavite with a certificate, it's usually trying to lend backbone to a spurious piece of Mickey Mouse crap. Disney, please don't sue me. Now, Moldavite, as I say, is a remarkable material. It's a tektite. It is not a meteorite. It is a byproduct of a meteorite impact. It's fascinating. It's definitely worth a purchase if you fancy some, but again, buy it for the right reasons. Buy it because it's fascinating, not because people have told you it does things that there's not really any evidence it does. Things like this are generally quite subjective, unfalsifiable, and again, appreciate the fact that because this genre of marketing falls into a grey area labelled belief, it is a grey area that a lot of people who are trying to make money try and take advantage of, because it means that they can kind of get away with saying whatever they want, because if someone calls them out on it, all they do is shout victim and pretend that they're being persecuted for their beliefs, when in actual fact all they're trying to do is insulate themselves from things like the Trades Description Act.
Oh, that's interesting, man. Did you know all this stuff about Moldavite? New to me.